What is up, you guys? My name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and today we're going to be talking about the HEALS Act, which is the brand new stimulus package that was just introduced by the Republican Party. It is a $1 trillion package, and we will be talking about what is included in this package, what isn't included in this package, and most importantly, how it's going to affect you and your finances. So let's get started. So on Monday, the Republican Party introduced the HEALS Act, which stands for the Health Economic Assistance Liability Protection in Schools Act. And this was the Republican Party's response to the HEROES Act, which was the $3 trillion stimulus package introduced by the Democrats. And the reason why the Republicans introduced the HEALS Act in response to the HEROES Act was that they felt that the HEROES Act was too broad. And so they came back with a stimulus package that was 1/3 of the total amount and was much more narrow in the programs that it was giving funding to. Now, the first thing that we need to address with the HEALS Act is stimulus checks. As you guys know, we received stimulus checks with the CARES Act, and that entire program was kind of a mess, to be honest, because there was a lot of people who were eligible for stimulus checks through the CARES Act that never received them due to a number of different reasons. And going out and getting answers from the IRS regarding these stimulus checks has been nearly impossible. And I am happy to report that there will be stimulus checks in the HEALS Act. Chances are it is very similar to how the CARES Act was handled, which is a $1,200 stimulus check to eligible individuals, $2,400 for people who are married or filed jointly, and a $500 stimulus check for dependents. The one silver lining is that in the CARES Act, you had to be under 17 years old to receive that $500, whereas with the HEALS Act, you would receive that $500 regardless of your age if you were filed as a dependent on somebody else's tax returns. And so that age restriction that was in the CARES Act is kind of the one big change that is currently laid out in the HEALS Act. But as of now, there will be a second stimulus check, I would say almost guaranteed at this point. The next thing we need to talk about is that $600 a week unemployment benefit. So as you guys know, in the CARES Act, you receive not only unemployment from your state, but also the federal benefit of $600 per week for people who are unemployed or affected financially by COVID-19. So people who could qualify this were independent contractors, were self-employed individuals, were individuals who lost their job. It really made unemployment become accessible to many more people and the benefits of unemployment to be much larger than they normally would have been. Now, these benefits expired this week, and it's been a really big talking point over the last couple of weeks of whether or not this will be extended. In the HEALS Act, it is proposed that instead of doing a $600 a week supplemental payment, it will be $200 instead. So you would collect your unemployment by the state, which is oftentimes determined by how much money you made before you were unemployed, and then the government would give you an additional $200 on top of that, which is quite significantly lower than the $600 that we have seen over the last few months. But that $200 a week would only be temporary, and in the HEALS Act, it says that at some point we would then transition from that $200 per week to 70% of what the person was making before they were unemployed. Now, this is kind of a complicated program and a complicated way of doing things, because how is the government going to determine how much somebody made before they were unemployed, and how are they going to cater those payments to the individuals and to their pay grade that they had before, and how are they going to ensure that it's accurate? It really kind of complicates the entire issue, in my opinion, and it's going to create way more problems than it's going to solve, in my opinion. So I am really interested to see how Democrats kind of rebuttal this and what the Republicans' plans are going forward on how they're going to handle this, because coming out with a program that's individualized for each individual American is going to be a system that is just going to be a mess. Now, I expect that there will be some sort of solution for the $600 payment, and I highly doubt that it will just go away altogether. Now, I don't know if the $600 payment will be extended until the end of the year for everybody. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like in the coming weeks, but I do think that there will be some sort of compromise, because this is something that has been a hotly debated issue. The Democrats want to see the $600 payment to be extended till the end of the year for all unemployed individuals. The Republicans want to see a reduced amount, and there are valid points, I think, to both sides, but I think what is important is that we continue to give money to Americans that need it so that they can continue to make ends meet and they can continue contributing to the economy. So we will see some sort of solution for this. It's just a matter of what exactly it's going to look like. Now, for that extra $600 benefit for independent contractors, self-employed individuals, and gig workers. The PUA contained in the CARES Act allowed for independent contractors, self-employed individuals, gig workers, 1099 workers to receive $600 per week benefit. And this was really big because typically people who are self-employed, people who are gig workers, people who are independent contractors, they are not eligible for any sort of unemployment benefit. But under the CARES Act, this temporarily changed. And as we stand right now, this benefit is going to be extended until December 31st, 2020, but it's unclear on how exactly the HEALS Act will affect this and whether or not the HEALS Act will make this program end sooner or whether it will just make it stay the same. It's really kind of unclear at this point. But as of right now, the $600 benefit for independent contractors, self-employed individuals, gig workers is currently set to end at the end of the year. So there is quite a long time left for people to reap the benefits of that program. Now for the PPP. So the PPP is currently set to end on August 8th, and with the HEALS Act, we would see some sort of expansion with the PPP. We would see an expansion on the funding as a whole, meaning that if you are somebody who has received the PPP already, you already received a loan through the program, under the HEALS Act, you would be given the opportunity to apply for a second round of funding, which is currently not possible under the CARES Act. So that is really good news for people who are business owners, entrepreneurs who received that funding, but it simply wasn't enough to last you this long. On top of the expansion on funding, they are also proposing to really streamline the forgiveness process. As you guys know, the PPP is a forgivable loan, but you have to apply for forgiveness, and forgiveness is contingent on how you spent the loan. Under the HEALS Act, it would make this process more streamlined, it would make it easier, it would make it more straightforward, making it so that it is easier and more likely for your entire loan to be forgiven at the end of the day. So that is overall, I think, really good news regarding the PPP. I do think that regardless of whether or not the HEALS Act passes, we will see the same sort of guidelines given out in the next stimulus package that passes. Next is student loan forgiveness. So as of right now, there is nothing on student loan forgiveness that is outlined in the HEALS Act. This is something that has been addressed quite a lot by the Democratic Party. I'm sure that once they come back and they do a counter to the HEALS Act, there will be something in there included about student loan forgiveness. But as of right now, the Republican Party has not come forward with any solution as far as student loans go. Next is the eviction ban. So as you guys know, in the CARES Act, there was an eviction ban stating that nobody could be evicted if they lived in a building that had a federally backed mortgage. And under the HEALS Act, this ban is going to be extended. Now, it is unclear on what the terms of the extension would be, how long the extension would last for, but it would keep tenants safe for a little bit longer because as of right now, the program in the CARES Act has already expired, which means that on August 25th, people can actually become evicted and essentially become homeless due to COVID-19. So this is good news for anybody who lives in a building or in a residential property that has a federally backed mortgage. Now, on top of these programs that I just talked about, there are a number of different allocated funds going to other programs as well, from $70 billion going to schools, $16 billion going to COVID testing. There is sections of the bill covering liability protection in the case of a litigation that arises from the pandemic. There's talk of providing aid to individual states and cities who are drastically affected by the pandemic as well. So the HEALS Act overall covers a lot of programs, it covers a lot of issues, but the big question is it enough? Is $1 trillion in comparison to $3 trillion enough to keep the United States afloat? And what is going to end up happening with the EIDL program once that program completely runs out of funds? What's going to happen with the PPP if they run out of funds before this bill passes? What's going to happen with the eviction bans? And so there is currently a lot of questions that have yet to really be answered, and they will not be answered until this bill passes. Now, in my opinion, I think that this will not pass in its current form. Of course, the Democrats are going to come back. They are wanting to propose a counter bill, counterpoints to the HEALS Act. I think that ultimately we will probably be meeting somewhere in the middle, and maybe the bill will end up being not a $1 trillion bill, not a $3 trillion bill, but maybe a $1.5 to $2 trillion bill. I am very curious to see what this will end up looking like once all things are said and done. But I think we can all agree on one thing for sure, and that is that there will be a second stimulus check. It's just simply a matter of how much that will be for, who will be eligible for it, and what will the time frame of that stimulus check be. But you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope it gave you some valuable information regarding the HEALS Act. I would love to hear your thoughts on this bill. Do you think it's enough? Do you think that we need some more funding in other areas that I didn't discuss? What are your thoughts on the stimulus checks? I would love to hear your thoughts in your comments down below, so make sure to leave a comment and I will respond to every single one. While you guys are at it, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.